Today's public figures can no longer write their own speeches or books, and there is some evidence that they can't read them either. Gore Vidal, American writer and intellectual. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Today, I am bringing on another candidate from here in the great state of Florida. We're going to talk about his run for Florida State House District 27. Please welcome Dennis Simpson. We're gonna get him at. There we are. All right, sir. How are you? And let me ask. I think I'm making a mistake here. I've got it in two different places, two different ways. Simpson and Samson. So please correct me.
I did notice the Simpson. That is wrong. It is Simpson.
Yeah. Okay. So I will get that corrected after the show. I've talked to my producer, which is technically me. So I apologize for that, sir.
It happens.
We will get that corrected. I don't know where I got Samson in there. Maybe I just thought you were a very strong guy. So good morning, sir. Tell us, you're running for office here in Florida for District 27. Let me pull that up on the screens so that folks can see exactly where that is. There you are. That is District 27 down there, just to the east of Ocala and west of Daytona Beach. So tell us about you deciding to run for the Florida State House.
Yeah, if you look at that district, it's part of West Volusia, North Lake County, and East Marion County. And you'll see a lot of that kind of shaded area in there is the Ocala National Forest. So pretty rural area, definitely pretty spotty on where to try to campaign and where, you think you're going to make the biggest impact. I'm not sure why they split up the districts the way that they do. I was in District 27 till about a year ago. I moved and bought 5 acres. I've been building a house and doing things in this area for the last year. And lo and behold, I'm in District 27 again. So I'm not sure, again, why they decide to change things. To me, it seems as though if you live in a county, your county should be your representative.
Right.
But of course, I do represent pretty much from part of the villages all the way over to, technically, I live in DeLand, but I am in the Lake County area. So I'm not sure even how that splits up, but pretty widespread group for sure.
Gotcha. And so what motivated you to run? Were you just excited about politics and you were like, you know what? I want to be a politician.
No, not at all. I mean, I am excited about politics. I follow, I see what's going on in the world, and it just seems as though people are becoming more divisive. It's either left versus right, red versus blue, whatever it is. It's the Hatfields and McCoys. And, you've got some unpopular things when you start saying, hey, we're on the brink of a civil war. And you look at the UK right now, and they pretty much are on the brink of a civil war. I don't know if there's any really turning back for them at this point.
Right.
From what's happening. I think it's almost you have to go forward with what you're upset about, and government's clearly not representing them. They're not Americans, so they don't have all the privileges and freedoms and things that are supposed to be instilled upon us. But I see Americans just voluntarily giving up freedoms in the name of punishing the other side. You look at the Patriot Act and things of that nature. Oh, it's okay if you spy on people because we need to make sure that we can prevent the next 9/11. And of course, that gets turned around on you. And people still have not realized that when you vote it in and give them that power, it will, in fact, at some point be turned against you. I see this country, unfortunately, going in the wrong direction. And I just can't stand on the sidelines anymore. So I want to get out there and see what type of influence I can have to motivate people to just look outside of that very narrow spectrum that they see. And I think libertarianism, I mean, that's the solution. I don't know why we're not getting the publicity or the I don't know why it's not trending or whatever. You would think that people have all the access and all the information in the world at their fingertips, and they'll be lucky to tell you that RFK is a third party option. They have no idea who else is running. They don't know about other parties. We're the third largest party out there, and people constantly ask me, well, what is a libertarian and what do they do? And I'm like, have you never heard this term? Have you never Googled it? You don't even look into it. I'm getting frustrated with a lot of stuff. So
Gotcha.
I just want to get out there and again, try to spread the message and just make people aware that we don't have to go down this path.
Got it. So then it's fair to say that your motivation then was to communicate the message of liberty and that there is another option, the libertarian option, like you said, the third largest party here in the United States. That's your motivation for running, is basically letting people know that the Libertarian Party exists.
I want to stop this divide that we have. It seems like if you say the word Donald Trump, you're going to get one extreme emotion or another one. And you say the name, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and people just have this natural either worship or hatred towards one candidate or the other. And of course, the mainstream media feeds into it. And it seems as though people would rather do that than look for other options. And yes, that's what's motivated me to try to just turn society back around. I've got 3 kids, and I'm wondering what kind of world we're leaving for them.
And in the process of campaigning, tell me about how that is. I don't want to say working out, but in terms of when you meet people and you're talking to them, what is the vibe that you're getting when you talk to people, and maybe you meet somebody that's really not heard of Libertarian Party, or maybe they've heard of them, but they've got misconceptions about who they are or what they believe.
Oh yeah.
What's been the response from people as you're campaigning?
Most people have either never heard of us or don't understand our principles. The ones that already have some type of misconception of what we stand for. Oh, they just don't want anybody telling them what to do. And that's not the truth at all. There's just a lot of things that you can look back and go, this is a very slippery slope. Again, when you start giving up some rights and allowing things to happen and seeing how they get turned around. So I don't know. It's just, it's go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm saying I'm just acknowledging that I understand. And so what kind of campaign events have you been up to?
I have been to 2 live events so far. One was a DeLand Pride event, and then the other one was the Marion County Builders Association, I believe. So definitely 2 different sides of the spectrum. One was very blue and one was very red. And I'm going to say some things to each side that's going to be a little bit unpopular. And unfortunately, when you say things that people have never heard of and what, the Constitution or what true freedom is supposed to be, whether it's freedom of speech, I hate to say that hate speech is a form of freedom of speech. You may not want to associate with those people, but isn't that kind of what makes you a voluntary person to be able to choose and decide who you associate with and what you do? I do believe that you should be able to discriminate. And I got a lot of pearl clutching when I said that at the Pride event. But of course, in a 3-minute conversation, when I say that up on stage, a lot of people don't quite understand. And again, I don't think they're really going to look into it. But I got a lot of very deep conversations after the fact on, well, I can't believe you would say something like that. Meanwhile, you can have a 55 and up community. They're allowed to discriminate because they don't want kids doing cannonballs while they're trying to suntan or whatever it is. So if you have that same community and they're allowed to be, say, a nudist community, you put walls up or whatever it is, so everybody feels safe and comfortable. If it becomes so popular that they get their own grocery store, and now the grocery store is very lean, and yes, you can come in here naked, and it just turns into essentially what the Villages is, where they just keep expanding it. Is just a very popular idea, and people want to move there to be around like-minded people. And you would be able to have certain areas where people would vote with their feet and go, you know what, this place is either not as tolerant on some things that I would like, whether it's marijuana, gay marriage, whatever it is, and just go somewhere else where maybe they are more like-minded.
So when you go to these events and you're saying some of these unpopular things, you go to the events that are more right-leaning and you say something that, sounds a little bit more left-leaning. And I know that we as libertarians tend to eschew the right-left paradigm, but just to make it easy for people that may not be familiar with libertarians and libertarianism as a whole, when you're saying some of these things that sound like the other side, and then maybe they are initially skeptical and then they maybe approach you, do after you explain like how it really works out in full, do people get it? Are they like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying," or are they still walking away confused?
I think once they kind of hear what the other side may be, because a lot of people don't put themselves in other person's shoes.
Mhm,
So I think once they kind of get an idea of, well, why would bail be racist? Why
mhm,
would anybody say that? And when you have gone through if you've been arrested, you've gone through all of it, needed bail money, usually you're not getting out in a couple days.
mhm,
You've lost work, you've missed at least some days of work if you haven't gotten fired completely. So to understand that as soon as you get trapped, you are now not only maybe you were paycheck to paycheck before, but you've got a lot of making up to do.
mhm.
And that really puts you behind. And especially if you've got to take days off to go to a probation officer or whatever it is. And then of course, you get some closed minded people that say, well, you should have never got in trouble. Well, if it's a victimless crime like possession of marijuana, which most people, hopefully Amendment 3 passes, but
Mhm.
we'll find out, most people don't agree that, marijuana users are true criminals. So when they kind of hear the other side of the story, maybe they've never experienced it. I laugh about it because if you watch, say, the movie, I think it was Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and
Mhm.
Dan Aykroyd, it's about essentially trading places from the higher up to the
You're
lowest.
dating us, by the way. Thank you.
Okay. Great movie, especially if you're not easily offended. But you get the super rich guy and he goes to jail and I can't be treated like that. And he gets sucker punched in the stomach.
Mhm.
That's you're not innocent until proven guilty like you think you are. So
Right,
this is not something new that just kind of came around. It's just once you get arrested and you get in trouble, you are a second class citizen.
right.
And again, it's the other side. You try to explain something where the Department of Education is not really working. So you explain that to the left and they don't quite understand. But once you say, look, you should be able to do this, I've got a lot of pushback on, well, if you kind of allow these smaller micro schools to pop up and you're teaching your, say, Christian values or Nazi values or whatever they're really afraid of, wouldn't you have that kind of mentality just inner working? And again, once you realize, well, you know what, this one size fits all style public school, you have to be there from 7 o'clock till 2 p.m. There is no other option. So a mother that say works as a server that works a second shift or maybe even a third shift, when is she supposed to see her kids? So at a minimum, we should be able to look at schooling on a scheduling basis, if not more of a values. But once you get into the values, they realize, yeah, I don't want my kids to learn your history books. I would rather it be this history. Then we'll actually have some discourse on, my side of history says this, my side says that, what's the truth? And hopefully people will actually search for it.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that. Current representative for District 13, Angie Nixon, she recently, now she's up here in Jacksonville, and she recently opened up a bookstore. Now, this is not really related to government per se, but she opened up a bookstore. And I don't know a whole lot about the bookstore, but from what I can tell, it seems very geared toward the Black community. And she had made some mentions, at least on X, related to, like teaching our culture, our history or whatnot. And I supported it, for the very same reason that you're pointing out is, like, because a lot of people were poo-pooing it and they were like saying, oh, well, you're gonna teach incorrect history. And I'm like, I support this regardless of whether or not I agree with the information that's coming out of there, because one, I support entrepreneurship, but and two, the more that people engage in at least seeking out more knowledge, I think the better.
Yeah.
And, and even if it's information that I might disagree with, I might say, "Hey, look, I don't think that's the correct perspective of history." And that's fine, like whatever, because again, like you said, you get these little pockets, and the more that we have of them, the more that we normalize the idea of learning and engaging. And then I think that leads to, debates. So maybe you have one view and I have another view. And so now we come together to maybe debate those views or talk about them and whatnot. So I think the same thing applies not only in the marketplace, but also in schooling and education, where when you have more choice, that choice leads to better things, maybe not necessarily in the very immediate, but over long term, I think it does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, how communities and obviously villages, and you take it back through history, The Department of Education is a very new experiment, and obviously it is not working.
Right.
We are not top 20 in, I think, any category of importance anyway. We're not measuring up, and yet we are the most overtaxed and highest price per child of any country. So clearly there's a divide here that needs to be looked at. And as soon as you start mentioning things of, we need to take a look at this, there are a lot of people that are just stuck in their ways and think, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I'm over here going, it's pretty broken. There's a lot of things that are broken. So you get the left that's upset with government about certain things. You get the right that's upset about government about certain things. And again, we're libertarians going, we've got solutions. We have real world things that could fix this and would make everybody happier. I hate the word segregation, but segregation by ideas. Now, obviously, I don't think that the government or big business or anything like that should be able to discriminate. If you're getting any of these tax breaks or anything else, you should not be hiring these kind of one-sided, one-minded individuals. But if you go to a very left, say rainbow establishment, you're not going to hire a skinhead, Nazi to be your bartender because of the name of diversity. So we do understand that we segregate. We may not call it that, but we know that we are judging people based off their looks. And instead of trying to pretend that we don't, let's just at least accept that, okay, you know what? If you want to have your viewpoints and you want to start your school and you're going to teach, things that have been banned in the state of Florida and a lot of other places, we'll see what those schools do. I'd like to see, when we have this school with X values and this school with Y values, we'll find out how many people are going to college or producing very well, how many of them turn out to be criminals or worse, how many of them are on welfare. And we'll kind of get an idea of, maybe this isn't the best mindset. And eventually, it may take some time. It may take a generation to figure out what works and what doesn't, but we will eventually get the results that we want, and things will modify and change over the course as needed. But we need to start blending in at least some libertarian ideas with these Republican and Democrat ideas. It can't just be one side or the other.
Right. When it comes to like discrimination and segregation and those kind of things, you're right. They are like 4-letter words effectively.
Right.
And I remember a story from years ago. I don't know if this was ever true, but it sounds like it could be true, or maybe it was true at one point. But somebody was telling me about a gay bar that they had went to, and in the bar there was somewhere in the bar there was a sign that said "No straights." And apparently, what was happening, there were straight guys, young guys, that were going in there to harass, people that were coming in to drink and have a good time and meet other people. Right. And so they just said, look, fine, no straights, gay folk on, there's a gay bar. We're going to actually ask you to leave if we find out that you're straight, just because we don't want the hassle anymore. And I support that. I was like, and it's funny because when I tell people on the left about that story, they might say, well, it shouldn't have happened. And I say, you're right. People should be better. But it did happen, and that was the response of the establishment, was to say, we want to make sure that our establishment is a place that our, people that are coming to be patrons, that they feel safe and comfortable, doing their thing, coming here for the purpose that we've set it up for, which is, a nice bar to have some drinks and meet some people, maybe do some dancing, what have you, karaoke or whatever. And, once I tell them that, they're like, okay, you're right. That's a fair response. And so I think when you say it in terms that make that's meaningful to the person that you're talking to, I think they start to understand that there is a value there, even if, doing it by government force is not a value, which is kind of what you were saying a moment ago.
Right. Yeah. Using government to force people to think like you or to believe what you want to believe. Another example of, things that are unpopular is I'm running against some people that are trying to push freedom of religion, but of course, really it's freedom of Jesus. I'm not going to say they, but you see a lot of Republicans now. I think it was the state of Louisiana just put the 10 Commandments into the school, which of course is going to be controversial. They should have the right to do that at their own school, but you can't kind of force these religions onto someone. And when they hear that, they don't like it. But it's very easy in a democracy to just have a bigger group come in and just outrank you, outvote you. And now, let's say Sharia law comes in. Well, are you going to abide by the new laws because they've outvoted you. So when you kind of flip the table and go, once this is imposed on you, you're not going to like it. They understand that. But as soon as you say,
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't really want to impose Jesus or, religious beliefs onto anyone. Again, they kind of don't understand at first, but when you realize the tables will eventually be turned, they do get it. True freedom means you can't be outvoted. Your rights are not negotiable.
Right. So talking about your opponents, let's take a look here. So right now it looks like it's going to be you and Andy Ferrari. I think it's how you say his name, Andy
I believe
Ferrari. He's
so.
the Democrat that's running. And right now we haven't hit August 20th yet, so we don't know who's going to win on the Republican side. But let's take a look over there. So here we have Richard Gentry, Stephen Shives, and then Becky. I think it's Ciroli, if I got that correct. So, do you have any anticipation of who you will be running against from the Republican side? Because to me, it looks like it's going to be. If I'm looking at just, I looked up the amount of money that everybody's brought in. Richard looks like he's brought in a tremendous amount more, 169,000 compared to Steve Shives, who has 24,000, and Becky, who has 12,000. So, do you have any idea who do you think is going to win?
I get a strong feeling that Richard Gentry is going to be it. I believe he is somehow tied in with maybe some lobbyists, and I don't want to say anything and slander the guy. I don't know, but he does seem more like the establishment Republican.
Okay.
Where the other two, Steve Shives and Becky, they both seem like they're more leaning towards small government and constitutional and things of that nature. I like one more than the other. I'll keep my opinion to myself, but I hope that one of them rises to beat Richard. Honestly, I don't care which of the two. I like them both better than that gentleman.
Okay. Yeah, on this show, I generally refer to them as the establishment and the grassroots. We had something similar to that here in Jacksonville, where we have the establishment Republicans, and then we have the grassroots that were rising up and kind of bucking some of the the Republican behaviors and whatnot. They were definitely more small government and so forth. So
yeah, a
the
lot of
Republicans that I remember from my early years.
The ones that claim to be against the establishment don't make it through the primaries. You look at, say, like a Laura Loomer. I think she ran 2 years ago in the Villages area. That should have been her territory. She should have ate that up, but she didn't make it through the primaries. What was the other gentleman's name? Sabatini didn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of wonder, I mean, for that area, now I do live in this area. He's got a good following. He seems to be fairly popular. But to not make it through the primaries, you kind of got to question how easy is it for the establishment to rig the primaries and just put in, well, we don't care at this point whether it's going to be candidate A or candidate B because they own both parties. You can act as though there's a difference between Republicans and Democrats, but really it's only on societal issues. It's just, how they want to push their agendas, whether it's going to be through big business or whether it's going to be more through the government establishment type stuff that they have. So the Department of Education, things of that nature. So anybody that I think is going to be more of a small government fan is probably going to get bumped out one way or the other. And most of the general public does not pay attention to primaries. They really don't. They're towing the party line. They get there, they see the R next to the name or the D next to the name, and they're just straight ticket. And that is costing us a lot of rights and a lot of freedoms. We're overtaxed. Everybody's complaining about it, but yet we will not change our behavior to try to get better representation. We have a chance. And unfortunately, I don't know if we're going to vote our way out of this. I don't know if we have the time to try to turn this thing back around. My big message for my campaign is you do have the right to alter or abolish the government if it does not work for you. And it clearly is not working. I would like to see Florida use the 10th Amendment, distance itself as much as possible from the federal government. And hopefully we could stand on our own. And if it comes to it and we have to stand on our own, whether it's a nuclear war or something like that, we should be much more prepared. I'm willing to take it as far as secession if need be. I don't believe that the federal government, the $35 trillion we're in debt, the nuclear war that's about to happen, the civil war they're trying to bring on, they just enacted the draft. I mean, I could go on all day about things that are just very scary that are affecting Floridians that really they had no right to impose on Florida. Florida should be taking care of Florida itself.
So what are a couple, excuse me, give me a couple of your top, maybe your top 2 or 3 platform policies, the policies that you're focusing on specifically for District 27. And then how, and then maybe we'll talk about, what your incumbents are up to.
Well, I know that with District 27, just like I think everywhere in Florida, it's growing. I mean, there's people moving here in droves. We don't have the infrastructure. We can't handle the traffic, the plumbing, the electrical. I mean, you name it. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done to address it. The biggest thing that I would say is people that live here in Florida. We've had, if somebody has a cattle ranch for decades, you've probably hopefully paid it off. But of course, you're still paying taxes on it. And when people move here from New York or California, their dollar value is not the same as ours. So if they sell a brownstone or whatever it is, and they have $1 million, you bring $1 million to Florida, you're going to have a lot of influence on what you want to buy. I don't believe that we need to. I would like to take away a lot of the regulations and actually take back. When things happen, we end up building $300,000, $400,000 homes, and they come down here and they're buying all these expensive things. And that's great because it's bringing in tax revenue, things of that nature. But now the person that owned that farm for generations has paid it off. Their property has now doubled, quadrupled in value just by owning so much land in such a desired area. So now their tax has gone up. If you've paid it off, your taxes should be eliminated. You own that property and that's it. Any other revenue that needs to happen through schooling or something should be done through local sales tax, things of that nature.
Gotcha. And I've been pulling up some of your opponents' issues and kind of skimming through and seeing what they're saying. It looks like at least of the two that we think may be the final opponents, when you come November, Andy Ferrari and then Richard Gentry. Gentry just has some generic things on his side. He doesn't look like he really goes through and elaborates. This looks like a simple one-page website here, from what I can tell. He just says, bringing down home insurance premiums, but he doesn't really say how. Giving local sheriffs the power to enforce immigration laws. What would you do? What kind of legislation would you support for local sheriffs, if any? Would you support, enforcing immigration laws at that level, or, what's your vision here for the state of Florida?
I mean, personally, I don't see a lot of the immigration issues, and maybe it's just because I don't go to some of the areas since I just moved to this territory. But I don't know if there's a huge influx of immigrants that are taking all the jobs that, of course, we're fighting for. There is a huge divide of what people are willing to do compared to what they are doing. It seems like everybody's kind of looking for a handout. So as far as, again, I think that Richard Gentry is not really appealing to anyone. I think he just kind of knows he's got the connections, so he's going to put generic stuff up there. I don't really know what vision he has to see for this, but my vision would be, again, let's take back the regulations and make it a little bit easier for people to be able to afford to live here. And one of my things, we talked about affordable housing, and subsidized housing is not affordable housing. Taking people's tax money to pay someone else's apartment is not affordable housing. So I gave him an example. When I first moved to Central Florida and was looking for an apartment just to get established here, there was an apartment complex that I was very excited about, indoor pools, all of that stuff. They told me, sorry, you make too much money, you can't live here. So How does affordable housing, have a gym, a cookout area, the pool, a very nice location? I would rather see it go down to maybe tiny homes or something that's a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable. And if people are comfortable living in a tiny house, a community, and that's affordable for them, then let's give them that option. It shouldn't be, well, you have to do this. And again, when these builders come in and they're either putting in these $400,000 homes, or you get it seems like everywhere I go in Florida, there's these 3 to 4 story apartment buildings that look like they're going to be restaurants and things on the first floor, maybe some businesses office on the second, and then residences on the top. So it looks like these kind of 15-minute cities that are popping up, which would be convenient for a lot of people and cut down on maybe commuting and things. But we don't need to invest all that. And then you get a hurricane that comes through, and no wonder the damage every time is astronomical. Building supplies, you couldn't build a house for what you could buy a house before. Now, all of a sudden, a 2x4 is up like 400% from a couple years ago. So trying to build, trying to do anything, it's also skyrocketing the housing market, and things are just getting out of hand, especially for original Floridians. We're the ones that are paying the price. We've paid taxes, we've built the roads, we built the schools, and now these California and New York people are coming down and buying here and enjoying the benefits, but original Floridians are almost being priced out of their own homes.
That's unfortunate. It's interesting. I was looking at Andy's website. So Andy's the Democrat challenger, and he says rents are skyrocketing with the ever rising cost of property insurance. The American dream of home ownership is out of reach for too many of us. And then he says, Andy will fight for property insurance relief for homeowners and not bailouts for corporations. You and I certainly agree. No
Right.
bailouts for corporations. How would you proceed talking about the property insurance issues that are happening here in Florida?
Again, when you've got skyrocketing cost to rebuild, you have skyrocketing home prices. Everybody's coming down here with, again, the $1 million from New York, and that's 2 to 3 times what we have here in Florida. So they are raising all the prices up, unfortunately, and it is very unfortunate. The stories that I've heard of people that are kind of going through taxes and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I would again like to take the regulations out and allow people to decide if you can take some of these, what do I see all the time? These storage units, and you can convert them over to very affordable apartment style studio apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I believe people would actually go, you know what, that's inhumane. You can't do that. But the person that needs to afford it, that's sleeping in a tent, I bet you that sounds like a dream come true for them. This is not what we want. We don't want to get somebody that's too comfortable. You get the subsidized housing and you got an indoor pool. Why would you want to do better? Why would you want to leave that? We want people to be, unfortunately, slightly uncomfortable and dream to have more. You should work harder. What are you doing to better yourself? That should be the safety net, not just, let's give everybody food stamps and free housing and make the workers pay for it. Again, we're $35 trillion in debt. There are more people that take from the system than pay into the system. So how much longer can we do this?
Right. Well, I think another point to be made when it comes to housing is that when you start getting subsidized housing of any kind, then there's an incentive for a particular type of housing. And when you have an incentive for a particular type of housing, there's an incentive to limit competition. So like you said, we might see a lot of smaller homes, which are more affordable for people. But if you have subsidized housing, that is direct competition. And so then we see, and we've seen it in places like California, and I think as well, I think New York as well, since, we've mentioned those a couple of times, where they've actually said, no, you can't do that. But then we also see it here where, and I don't know about you, but I've been to meetings where the neighbors are like, okay, well, how big are that? They're talking about a development that might come in, nearby within range. And so they're going to like a town hall meeting, and some of the citizens are saying, well, how big are the homes? What about this? What about this? And then the citizens say, well, no, we don't want that development because it's too small, too close, too whatever, right? It's the whole NIMBY, not
Right.
in my backyard. And it's like everybody wants to have all these, these opportunities for people, but just not close to them. And so
Right.
if you and I are both living in Jacksonville, in different parts of Jacksonville, and I say, well, not in my backyard, and then you say, well, not in your backyard, well, then whose backyard are these things going to be in effectively, where we actually can, use the free market to bring down the cost or make things a little bit easier for certain, for certain demographics of people that have lower incomes, or, or maybe, immigrants who maybe haven't quite established themselves as well just yet, but we're limiting. It's kind of like we cut off our nose to spite our face in a sense,
Right.
right? By supporting some of these ideas, which sound nice, but then kind of box us in. And so then we, in a sense, need this affordable housing. And we need, and I put that need in quotation marks, if you will. Um, we need these programs to assist people, because we've basically cut the programs from being available, or not programs. We cut the free market from being able to address the problem in the first place. So I agree, cutting regulations would go a long way. The last thing here. Education. That's been a big deal here in Florida. We've had the Moms for Liberty. They've kind of risen up, and they've been kind of storming our local school boards and whatnot. What ideas do you have for education in terms of policy wise? Is it just limited to like you said earlier, let people have a choice, or is there more that can be done? Because some of the complaints, some of the reason that like Moms for Liberty have been storming our school boards has been over like books, and we've been arguing about book bans and stuff like that. So aside from choice, what other things could be done here in Florida?
There's quite a lot. I mean, I do believe that, again, getting the smaller micro schools, even if you were to take the same school that you're used to going to, I have a meet the teacher tonight, actually, for my daughter. We don't know who the teacher is. I really wasn't a fan last year of her teacher. So I'm hoping we get a better one. And I guess we're just stuck with whoever she gets, no matter maybe what their views are or their attitude or whatever. So I believe I should have the option to say, hey, can her schooling start on the second shift? Can it be this? Hey, can I choose her teacher? Let her kind of play and let the teachers be there. And let's get an opinion on which teacher she prefers. And if you have good teachers that are constantly preferred, if they're constantly doing well, their students are doing well, we should be paying them more than, I think it's 42,000. I mean, I hear a lot that teachers don't get in it for the money, but you also bog them down with 4 years of a college degree. So that way they can rack up $100,000 in college debt, then pay them a little better than, I don't want to say minimum wage, but it's $40,000 in today's time. You can't survive on that by yourself, in my opinion, especially if you're college educated and trusted with children and all these other things. By taking out those regulations and saying, you know what, I wouldn't mind someone that maybe only has a 2-year degree. We're talking about kindergarten, first grade, things that, I should be able to teach a child.
Right.
And I don't even have an education degree. So cutting back on some of those things and just making it so that way, all right, you know what, we're going to choose this teacher because she's available on these days. Maybe it's 3 days a week, 4 days a week. There needs to be a lot more leeway on, as long as your child is performing well, getting the hours needed, things of that nature. But it does seem like it's become a childcare, a babysitter. And a lot of people are just happy to be able to go to work so that way they can do that. But they don't realize that if you made school work around you, you may not even need that second job, or your wife has to go to work to pay for it because you are being overtaxed. We're paying, I think, 35 to 45% of a minimum of what you earn through income tax, state tax, sales tax, you name it. And you have no real choice on how the monopoly of school and the influence of your children is occurring. And I understand exactly why Moms for Liberty and all these other organizations are stepping up and going, you know what, these are our kids. And I appreciate that you want to help and teach and do things, but it is still, I'm the parent. It's going to be under my morals, my viewpoints, not just a mix of whatever crazy stuff the federal government wants to decide, like the Title IX, where if you don't allow boys to play in girls' sports and things of that nature, then we'll just take your federal funding. They shouldn't have that much power to tell us what we can do with our kids.
Got it. Let's take a couple audience questions, and then we're gonna close on out here. So up here, Brian Fleming asked, "Does Dennis promote Defend the Guard?"
Defend the Guard, I believe, is the organization or the program where they are trying to prevent Floridians from being mandated, essentially, to go to war, if I'm correct,
Yes.
For anybody that didn't know. So, of course, I don't believe that anybody should be mandated to go fight for your country. If it is a valiant fight that we should be fighting, people should volunteer for it. People should understand the need to maybe have that war. I don't know of really any war that is being fought or has been fought that hasn't been complete government involvement, where, rich people are telling us it's in our best interest. Let's go over here. Let's fight these people for these reasons. And it has pretty much always come down to, well, that was a mistake. There was a lot of things we could have done differently or done better. So no, I don't believe that anybody should be conscripted. I do defend the Guard.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right, sir. Last final words, and then tell people like where they can find you, how they can help support your campaign.
I am on Facebook, Dennis M. Simpson, State Rep, Florida 27. I've had a website. I thought I had both parties suck.vote. I don't know what happened. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I'm so busy that they somehow took all the content and put it over to Simpson FL Rep State Rep 27 dot GoDaddySites.com. It is a mouthful. I don't even really remember it.
Right.
I don't really
I'll get that added in the show notes here so people can find it.
Okay, good. I do go to the monthly Lake County meetings, so anybody can look those up online and see when we're doing those. Obviously, we do conventions and things of that nature, but I don't really have anything planned. Just a few more of these podcasts and things where I'm just going to take the snippets that I think should help best, and I'll probably just promote them around. But really, it's all word of mouth. You know, I paid to get myself into this campaign just to be able to try to, you know, spread the message of freedom as best I can. I don't really plan on pumping a whole lot of money into it. I'm not taking donations. I'm scared that, you know, you support an extremist like me, you might get the Canadian trucker treatment where they freeze your bank accounts and things of that nature. So all I'm really looking for is people to take the ideas to heart, look at the Libertarian Party, see what we are about. And there are some very good candidates that are actually running. I'm not going to pretend that I'm one of them. I am principled. I will make sure that, you know, your rights and your freedoms are there. But I'm not really interested in taking this position. I'm busy. I've got a family. I've run my own business. I will be happy to help this state get free if you believe that I am the best candidate and the best choice. But if you don't, and you don't like the Republican or the Democrat, vote NOTA. Vote none of the above. You know, disrupt this whole thing. Tell them that we don't accept Richard Gentry as the establishment candidate, and we do want better.
Got it. Awesome. Well, you hold tight backstage. We'll chit chat for a moment afterward, and I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
Hold tight for just a second. All right, folks, thank you for watching. I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. I want you to be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Like I said at the beginning of the week, there may be some disruptions for the next week or two as our son is getting ready to start school. And so that means we're going to have to shift our schedule around and make sure that everybody gets to where they need to be on time. And so bear with me for the next week or two as things might be a little bit rocky. But otherwise, make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. Bye.